Should I really?
Yes, do. Will you please?
I really ought to be seeing to the chicken.
And the legend is that somebody wrote up, doing a sort of Banksy with a whitewash brush, free as a aura on a railway siding in Euston.
They didn't have any films. It was fantastic, so they had to commission work and give work to new people. And there was a fantastic generation of people working there. Derek Jarman, for instance, was around. Ken Loach, of course, was around. Neil Jordan was around.
Come on! I'll help you!
I think it was one of the best things that have ever happened to British cinema, frankly. It was just kind of an explosion of let's use movies, let's use cinema to explore whatever issues we want to, you know. Some of the films were highly engaged, you know, in a socially political kind of way. Some of them were highly abstract, like Peter Greenaway's, you know, and some of them were kind of a bit more, you know, visually obsessed, like mine. It was a really interesting period. I don't think there has been as good a period since.
Film on 4 not only gave birth to a generation of new filmmakers, it also offered a fresh perspective on 80s Britain.
Well, here's my chance for something else, and yours as well. Even if it is just for the one night, we'll always have the memory of it, won't we?
I was asked to write a film, and I wanted Stephen Frears to do it. So I found out where he lived from a friend of mine. I went round to his house, and he was sort of groaning and moaning in his house and grumbling about.
So I said, well, you know, nobody in their right mind is going to go out and see a film about a gay Pakistani laundrette owner. And I was completely wrong. David Rose and his assistant, Karen Bambra, commissioned Hanif to write about a minority. I mean, for impeccably liberal reasons. But they made the mistake of asking Hanif Qureshi to write it, who wrote something much more sort of subversive and unexpected.
In those days, to see people kissing, men kissing, it was really shocking for people. And I remember in the cinema, particularly in a place called Milton Keynes, people going, "Ah, no, what are they doing? How awful, that's terrible," causing a lot of outrage, which was terrifically appealing to me and Stephen Frears.
In this damned country, which we hate and love, you can get anything you want. It's all spread out and available. That's why I believe in England. Only you have to know how to squeeze the tits of the system.
It was a mischievous twist on Thatcher's vision of a Britain full of thriving small businesses.
My Beautiful Laundrette and a lot of those other early Channel films were fantastic Thatcherite packages, you know, because they were made really cheaply, they were made really quickly, and they sold to huge audiences. My Beautiful Laundrette particularly was about two guys who were terrific entrepreneurs. You know, what a great idea, set up a chain of groovy laundrettes.
Would you do us the honour, madam?
Love to.
Here.
There were also some very odd things. What was that thing with all the little children dancing around? What the hell was that?
It's the mini pops.
The mini pops.
Mini pops, yeah.
Now,
that was like
odd.
a kind of
that was odd.
throwback to the 50s.
Well, it was even odder than that. I don't think it'd get on now.
If you ask me, of all the mistakes Channel 4 made, and we made lots, the one I'm really ashamed of was that one. It was a programme that was supposed to be kind of amusing, about little kids dressing up and showing off, and actually it was a piece of child pornography, I think. You would never transmit that programme today.
In those days, the channel had a programme called Right to Reply, where offended viewers could vent their spleen.
Mini Pop seems to upset some viewers a lot, like Mrs. Williams of Harpenden, who said that she was not a withering old battle axe, but...
I object to the makeup and sexy dresses. It is too provocative. There's enough child pornography without advertising like this to increase it.
Come on, you f***ing jerk-off! Come on!
In general, the channel seemed almost to relish the volume of complaints, as though it proved they were on the right track.
Yeah, you f***ing ain't right, buddy. Niggas be talking about, buddy this.
One expects the odd swear word on television to add realism to some situations, but what we got from Richard Pryor was a shocking flow of obscenities.
In the early 1980s, bad language was almost as common on the street as it is today, but on television, it was still heavily policed. The swear words on Channel 4 were so frequent that one of the tabloids kept a weekly tally.
A very great deal of it violates, in programme after programme, the Broadcasting Act of 1981, under which it was established, which said that they mustn't put on programmes which offend against good taste and decency.
Some complaints could be brushed aside, but there were regulators to consider as well. In an effort to run adult content without having the roof fall in, the channel tried to come up with an on-screen warning system.
Jeremy's first suggestion was that after a particularly contentious programme, there would appear on the screen an eye, a human eye, which would just go... We didn't actually implement that suggestion.
I thought, well, what am I going to say to the person who says, my 10-year-old child was watching this last night, and I didn't know it was dangerous or difficult. And I said, all right, we'll put a red triangle on the screen.
From time to time in the late evening, Channel 4 transmits films made for the cinema, which some viewers may find a bit strong for television viewing. From now on, we'll be using this triangular warning symbol to accompany transmission of such films. This triangle is to tell you that care is required. You may decide not to watch a film.
Oh, I remember that stuff about the triangle. Yes, it's all coming back to me now. Happy days.
And I know lots and lots of people, guys I was at school with, that would sit up in Scotland watching, you know, Polish art house movies till 4 in the morning in the vague hope that the red triangle might flick and they might see a piece of flesh cruising over the screen, you know?
The increased viewing figures underlined the obvious, that there was an audience out there looking for adult films. At least the red triangle was a public service to them.
The fact is, it probably also served to increase the audience for the film, like Come Downstairs, Granny, there's something interesting on, for the wrong reasons. People thought they were going to see pornography, which they were not. Ever.
Or maybe not for now. There was no question that Channel 4 had established itself as a force for good, waking up the BBC and creating a host of energetic new businesses. But if that was music to the ears of Thatcher's government, everything else coming out of the channel was increasingly off-message.
Well, Friday promises to be very loud but very musical. There's 1 3/4 hours of The Tube, a live rock show that's going to prove to be the most exciting thing to happen to televised rock music in many a year.
From day one, the new channel had set its sights on pockets of the viewing public you could call disenfranchised. Their biggest revelation was to show that the youth audience was huge and wanted something more than Blue Peter.
Well, at that time in the early 80s, there were two Britons, really. There was a sort of Thatcherite, so-called Chelmsford, Cheltenham, white, middle-class, respectable Britain. But there was another Britain which became known as youth culture. So suddenly, when Channel 4 started, you could see all this stuff about rock and pop. But in those days, pop and the left and all that, you know, was in opposition to the straight world.
Walk to your television set and turn it up. It's November the 5th, and we're going to do something now that's going to go in the annals of television history. It's a live rock show. We've got an enormous firework display laid on. A great expense. Channel 4 spare no expense whatsoever. This is now time for The Tube. Don't make you smile.
For the next 5 months, you're going to be able to see live music, interviews, my stomach getting bigger week by week. In fact, things that have never before seen on a live TV show. I've just realised I forgot.
You can hear me now, yeah. And that was the Pogues. They were previously known as Pogue Mahone, which means, what does it mean?
Kiss my bottom.
The Tube was a very important part of Channel 4 starting because of the time that it was on. And everybody said, we're going to have this music programme that's on at 5:30 in the evening. And that was a very daring thing to do.
The Tube offered everything that the other channels didn't. Subversive, sassy, and, in the case of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, banned on the BBC. All in all, a far cry from the more wholesome Top of the Pops.
Sorry, Jules is making me laugh.
I've just had a message. I've just had a message from the producer. I'm afraid that we didn't link into that excellent Sting film properly because you were larking around a bit too much.
Certainly before that, sort of youth television had been quite earnest. We weren't interested in any of that. We were just, you know, Paula was just interested in asking people what they had down their pants, and I was sort of interested in barging some with sort of mullet-haired rocker out of the way so I could get and hear a blues person, you know.
It took great amounts of prayer to get Sting into his trousers for this interview. He spent the last 15 minutes in his dressing room with a greased shoehorn. But now, before any more girls faint, here is the man that Elvis Costello once said